Hello friends, welcome into the Cowboys Report presented by Tavor. I am your host, Tom Downey, and we're going to start things off today with the Cowboys roster move, one that I did not ever see coming. Cowboys have brought back wide receiver Brice Butler. This comes after Butler vocally said he wanted to be paid like a number one wide receiver, and that's why he left the Cowboys, because he wanted to go get more playing time somewhere else. He went to the Cardinals, who have a pretty bad receiving core of their own. Didn't make the roster, but the Cowboys have decided to bring back Butler. Now, they're going to go deeper at wide receiver. We'll talk more about why later on in the show. They also cut free safety Tyree Robinson to make room, which we'll come back to as well. Now, Butler and Dak had chemistry last year. Now, Butler's had drop issues in the past, and I know some of you guys like Brice Butler. I will continuously remind you that, yes, he can make some big plays as deep, and I do like that about him. He also had a higher drop rate than Dez Bryant did last year. That's kind of a concern for me. And if you had asked me this even a week ago, I would have said there was no chance Butler was going to come back, which I actually did, by the way, in a recent Cowboys mailbag. But even Butler himself is surprised he's back when he announced the re-signing on Twitter and Instagram. He said that he never would have thought this would have happened. So as of right now, Butler is the number 7 wideout. Now, there's not much of a true learning curve because he already knows the offense. Beasley's your number 1, Hearns, and then Thompson Gallup almost had a 50-50 split among themselves for snaps last week. Tavon Austin is your number 5, and he actually made some plays. We'll talk about that, of course, later on in the show. And Terrence Williams has quickly fallen out of favor with this Cowboys receiving core. Now, this is what you're going to get from Brice Butler. He's not going to be a 500 receiving yard guy. That's never who Brice Butler has been in his entire NFL career or his college career. Brice Butler's not a number 2 receiver. But if you ask him to be a number 4 or a number 5 and bring you some deep threat ability, well, that's when it makes some sense. So he's in his 6th year now, went to San Diego State as well. Again, didn't make the Cardinals roster, and I am surprised that he's back on this Cowboys roster because I didn't think he was going to come back. I don't think the Cowboys wanted him back. And I'll make note, too, Butler was rather critical of Scott Linehan's play calling, which he was correct about. Worth noting, the Cowboys brought back Butler anyway. I think that means maybe Linehan has a little bit less pull when it comes to the Cowboys roster moves right now, unlike he did with, say, what I think happened with Dez Bryant. All right, Cowboys fans, I've got a special offer just for you guys. I've got 20 Cowboys t-shirts or hats to give away. Now, they're free for you, but nothing in the world is truly free. And these shirts and hats do come from one of our sponsors once you get started with them. So DM me on Twitter at WhatGoingDown. Don't worry, I'll put my Twitter link in the comments section as well. DM me on Twitter if you want the details. And oh, by the way, once we give away 20 of those t-shirts or hats, we'll give one of the 20 some Cowboys tickets as well. So DM me on Twitter if you want the details, guys. You're not going to find this offer anywhere else. Moving now with some more Cowboys news. We mentioned this earlier. Tyree Robinson has indeed been cut. And this wasn't much of a surprise to me. Xavier Woods, who we'll talk about more later on in today's show, should or at least has a good chance to play in Week 3 of the NFL season. Robinson made it because Woods was hurt. I think he is a prime practice squad option. Now, he's been active for 2 games, but hasn't actually played on the field at all because, well, Jeff Heath and Kevon Frazier handled that role pretty well, and Ibrahim Campbell had already surpassed him as the number 3 safety. So Robinson's still a developmental guy. Don't be surprised if he ends up on the Cowboys practice squad. And the question then becomes, of course, how does this secondary shape up? They're still going thin. Like, 4 safeties, 4 cornerbacks, not what I thought would have happened, but Xavier Woods should be coming back in the very near future. A very promising sign for Woods once he's healthy. As for Robinson, obviously sucks for him to get cut. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up on the practice squad. So with Butler in and Robinson out, folks, grade the signing. What grade do you give the return of Brice Butler? Is it an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F? I'm sure many of you guys will say A because you guys love Brice Butler. Look, it's a cheap 1-year deal. I'm not the world's biggest fan of Brice Butler from an on-the-field play perspective, but if he's your number 5 or your number 6 receiver, it's really not that bad in the end. So I'll give it a B or a C because it's not like they're throwing $8 million at Brice Butler. It's a cheap depth-type signing for the Cowboys.